I think you have been using that Sapphire Nitro 4GB card, or maybe that 8GB 2060 from Nvidia if you have been lucky enough, for way too long now. With the dropping crypto market over the last few months, maybe it's now finally time to give yourself the much needed upgrade you have been so desperately waiting for quite a while now. A huge number of GPU miners are dropping their stock over the second-hand market, and this creates the long-awaited gasp of air that mostly everyone has been waiting for a very long time. Since GPUs are becoming cheaper and cheaper on the second-hand market, and even new ones dropping closer to the original MSRP levels, you can finally get a so-called bargain for an RTX 3080 or maybe RTX 3090s, and maybe just maybe it's time to give the old R9 390 finally a break, as it is long overdue for its retirement. But unfortunately, the times where for a few $100 you could pick up that flashy new flagship GPU are, well, long gone, and this is the new hardly accepted pricing experience that we have to live through today, and sadly, I think things will never go back to what they were like.
Since the overall GPU price drop, I think that now it's a good of a time as always to actually think about upgrading your GPU with some more normal and down-to-earth prices. And I figured, well, since I have on hand the 3080 and the 3090, why not make a comparison between the two and see exactly which one is best for you. Now, I know that the launch of the RTX 40 series is just around the corner. So, well, the prices are expected to actually drop on the 30 series even more after they release. So, well, you can either hold on a little bit and do your research, or maybe, well, now is the time to pull the trigger since you have been waiting for so long to actually get your hands on, well, a high-end GPU. So now back to the topic on hand, which is the RTX 3080 versus the RTX 3090. We're going to take both of these GPUs, well, put them through their paces I should say, take them out on a spin with some games, of course some productivity tasks with the Adobe Premiere Pro, and see exactly how much rendering well takes on both of these GPUs. And we are going to take them to some GPU benchmarks, of course, to see some of the scores. And of course, we are very interested in noise levels and as well as temperature levels on these puppies right here. Do keep in mind that this GPU right here takes a, two 8-pin connectors, while this one takes a 3 8-pin connector, because it's a bit more powerful and a bit more, power hungry as a GPU. So this being said, let's take them, take them out of the box and see exactly what comes included in the kit. Right, so here we have the old R9 390, which we are going to set aside because we don't need that anymore. That's a 4GB card. No, not enough for today's videos needs, and not enough for today's gaming needs as well. Right, so this is a close-up of the GeForce RTX 3090 right here. As you can see, a few minor differences between it and the RTX 3080. First of all, the pins. So this is a 3 8-pin layout right here, because it takes in quite a little bit more juice than the RTX 3080. As you can see, this is a 2 8-pin connector right here compared to the 3 as before. In terms of width of the cards, well, it is a little bit on the beefier side, the RTX 3090 compared to the RTX 3080. As you can see, the width is more or less similar. There's not a very big difference between them. The difference, I would definitely say, is in the length department. So as you can see, it is quite a bit more lengthy on the RTX 3090 compared to the RTX 3080. But definitely not a huge difference between the two. And well, weight-wise, anyway, they both feel more or less the same in hand. Maybe slightly on the heavier side, of course, the RTX 3090 right here. So this being said, let's carry on and see exactly what comes included in the boxes of both the RTX 3090 and the RTX 3080 right there, so that you know what to expect.
So with the RTX 3090, what you get included in the box, of course, there is some literature, and furthermore, you have this very nice piece of accessory, which is the mouse pad that is included. It is fairly nice and wide, and it has a rubberized texture on the back of it, so you're not going to have it slipping and sliding around your desk while you're using your mouse, which is definitely nice to have. And of course, the best thing, in my opinion, is the bracket that comes included with the kit. This is a metal bracket with two rubberized shoes, one to hold your GPU in place and one to hold itself in place inside the case, so you don't have it slipping and sliding all around the place. And this is definitely needed with this GPU, as it is quite a heavy boy, so yeah, you don't want to see this beast of a GPU sagging inside your PCI Express slot. So with the RTX 3080, as you can see, you have some literature, of course, included in the box, and then you have a splitter. This is a 2 6-pin female connector that comes out to one male 8-pin connector for your GPU. And of course, you have a support bracket as well, which this time is made out of plastic. It's not made out of metal like the RTX 3080, but it doesn't have to be because the weight of this GPU is not as hefty as the 3090. And well, it does its job fairly nice and fairly well. It mounts in a traditional sense in an open slot just below your GPU in order to keep it from sagging, and well, it does its job quite nicely. Of course, included in the box still you have some knickknacks and a little bit of accessories for the bracket side of things as well. And here we have the first game, which is Battlefield 5. As you can see, everything is maxed out at a 4K resolution. We have the DLSS on, and it's running on the DX12 because this game supports the X11 and the X12. And this is the performance of the RTX 3080. As you can see, we're just about at the 60 FPS threshold. Not quite there all the way, but definitely not far off from the 60 FPS. And as you can see, this makes for a really enjoyable playthrough of the game. And I think the performance is the same for multiplayer. I didn't have time to actually test multiplayer with this game, but then definitely on the single player it does quite well. So yeah, the performance speaks for itself. Next on the list here we have Cyberpunk 2077. As you know, it's quite a demanding title for any GPU. And we have this running at 4K max with DLSS running on balance. And as you can see, we're just around, well, 30 FPS to high 40s at times running these settings. Now, the small mention that I have to make is that DLSS in this game can be set to actually medium or quality or performance. And if you run it on quality, then you would see a drop in FPS to something around 25 FPS. So definitely hitting up on balance makes it more playable overall. And if you hit it up on performance, then you would see a bump up to around, well, 40-45 FPS. I couldn't myself see any differences between running these settings in DLSS. But yeah, well, definitely if you're into, well, the sort of high settings running on high, even though you can't see any differences, then you would definitely expect to be running this game at around 25 FPS running the RTX 3080. And here we have Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Once again, everything is maxed out at 4K with DLSS enabled, and everything seems to be running pretty smoothly. This is quite a crowded environment here in the city. I didn't see any differences in FPS when fighting monsters or NPCs, but definitely running into this sort of crowded environment right here, everything is quite stable. You can reach at around 50 FPS constantly. So this is the kind of performance that you can expect running everything on 4K with the RTX 3080. Next on the list here we have the 3D Mark Time Spy Extreme. This is a test running the DX12 and it's running at 4K high settings. And as you can see, it's doing a fairly good job. I think the lowest of the low was around 27 FPS, as you can see in a few frames, or actually 24 even. But anyway, it's mostly running at above 30 FPS with highs of 65 FPS and sitting at a medium around 30 to 45 FPS overall. So overall, it's quite it's quite a good experience. It's not the smoothest experience, but it is a smooth experience nonetheless for the RTX 3080. So this is well, one test that I would say that it passes quite easily. Well, given the amount of money that you would pay nowadays for an RTX 3080, I would not find this acceptable for the high inflated MSRP, well, high over MSRP prices of yesterday. But given today's prices, I would say this runs quite smoothly for the price that you could pay for an RTX 3080. Let's listen shortly on how loud this GPU gets while under load. So we have here rendering an Adobe Premiere clip, And as you can see, it's hovering at around 90% utilization with 52 degrees Celsius. And this is just how loud it gets in the worst case scenario with an open PC case. With the case closed, actually you can't hear barely anything, so that's pretty good even though it's a 3-fan GPU. We have Battlefield 5 once again running the RTX 3090. The power consumption is quite high on this GPU. As you can see, it's using around 400 watts, and the FPS is not sitting very well overall any higher than the RTX 3080. It's just running as smooth as the RTX 3080 did, although there was no frame rate cap for these runs. I'm not exactly sure why this FPS still remains quite constant, but overall I could say I felt a relatively, well, I would say self-suggested smoothness because it was the RTX 3080 versus the RTX 3090. But yeah, overall, of course, if you don't have any issues with the RTX 3080, of course, you're going to be more pleased with RTX 3090. Not when just gaming, but as well using, well, other productivity tasks. So moving on forward here, we have the Cyberpunk 2077. This is a more demanding title for the RTX 3090. And right now, we're running at around 40-45 FPS. But do keep in mind that this time we're running DX12 engaged with quality in mind. The DLSS settings is set for quality instead of performance. As before with the RTX 3080, we'll drop down to around 25 FPS when running that setting. And right now we're, well, constantly above 40 FPS running that setting. And if we were to set it on the balance option there for the DLSS, we would jump up to around 70 FPS with everything enabled on high and 4K resolution. And as you can see here, we're running the 3D Mark x Spy Extreme with the RTX 3090. And this time around, it sits, well, quite better than the RTX 3080. As you can see, we have FPS constantly over 110. And, well, it runs overall more smoothly than the RTX 3080, which is to be expected. And I would say that, well, considering Time Spy as a, well, just as a baseline, this is definitely sitting and looking much better than the RTX 3080, of course.
Thank you guys once again for watching this video. This was Alex from Tech Fusion. If you liked the video, you know what to do. Hit that like button. It will greatly help us out. And of course, maybe even consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you and see you guys in the next one.